Poirier is a multiple-time TEDx speaker, Success Magazine, emerging entrepreneur, the founder of Blue Talks, that's BLU, a Wall Street Journal, USA Today bestselling author, and author of the book, The Enlightened Passenger, where he talks about the topic he's going to cover today with all of you, and that is the power of no. It's so ironic that you're talking about this, Corey. I just did a workshop today on strategic sales negotiation and how a lot of times people don't say no, even in negotiation, how that is a tactic and help them to now close more negotiations in a win-win style. I can't wait to hear it. Stage is all yours.
So my mother and I were in a drive-through, and we were in a coffee shop drive-through in particular. It was Mother's Day. We were in the car. There was a gentleman behind us that was, as we were at the drive-through ordering speaker, he was really insistent that we were wasting his time. He was yelling profanities at us, "Get out of the line, you're taking too long." And again, it was Mother's Day. I was, driving away with my mother after we got what we were supposed to get. And my mother's partially deaf, so she didn't hear what he was yelling. And so I decided to test things. And I said to my mom, "Did you hear what that guy was yelling at us?" And she said, "No, I didn't. What was he yelling?" So I told her what he was yelling. And she said, "You know what? I didn't hear him yelling at that." And it was like, let's say he was, again, I said to her, he said, "Get out of the line. You're taking up too much time." And she said, "I didn't hear that, but we should turn around and go back and talk to him. And I want to punch that guy in the throat." And my mother's not normally like that, but I thought I would reframe things for my mother. And I said, "Mom, maybe it's not about us at all. Maybe, just maybe, because it's Mother's Day, this guy sees people in the car ahead of him, can tell it's a mother and a son, and maybe he doesn't know his mother. Maybe his mother was in jail when he was born. Maybe he never met his mother. Maybe his mother was terrible to him. Whatever the reason is, maybe there's something about the fact that it's a mother and a son, and he's kind of jealous today because of that. So maybe it's not about us at all, Mom." And without missing a beat, my mom said, "You know what? I never thought of it that way. We should go back and buy that sweetheart a coffee." Notice nothing had changed, right? All I did was reframe things for my mom, and everything changed in terms of how she was going to handle it. I think we would agree if we went back to punch him in the throat versus go back to buy him a coffee, we're going to have a different outcome. Now, I bring this up to say that I wasn't always this wise. In fact, I barely graduated high school. I got a 49 plus one in a class where I had to get a 50 to pass. The teacher gave me the plus one to allow me to graduate. I never forgot that. So I wasn't always this wise. I would love to pretend that I was. And so when I was earlier in my life and career, I was exploring, how do you achieve success? Before I was this wise, let's call it. How do you achieve success? And so my grandfather, who was my biggest mentor in a lot of ways, said to me at one point, "The way to be successful is to say yes to everything. If you just say yes, you'll be successful because you have more opportunities. People will like you more because you said yes to them." And so I started saying yes to everybody. There was a problem. I started saying yes at the cost of my health. I was trying to tackle everything. I was burning out. I was having too many things on my plate, and I was dropping the ball. I wasn't even doing a good job at a lot of them because I was trying to tackle so much. And so I thought, but how could my grandfather be wrong? He's the wisest guy I know. And then, to make matters worse, I heard Richard Branson, who runs 200 and some companies, say yes to everything, and then figure out how to do it later. So I'm like, okay, now Richard Branson doubled down on what my grandfather said. So how could Richard and my grandfather be wrong? Yet I'm burning out. I'm not, as successful as I thought I would be. And then finally, I started interviewing thought leaders, thousands, to the tune of now 8,000 thought leaders. And here's the thing I discovered. One of the things I discovered that thought leaders do differently than most other people is they say no 20 to 50 times more than everybody else. So here's a problem. Richard Branson, one of the most successful business owners of all time, is saying, say yes. And my grandfather, wisest guy I know, is saying, say yes. But I'm interviewing influencers who I know are saying no because of how hard it is to reach them. You try picking up the phone and calling Tony Robbins right now and getting them on the phone. And so I knew that they had people built in to say no for them. I knew they were saying no more often. And finally, it took me a long time. I had to keep studying this to finally figure out the difference. Finally, I realized what my grandfather was doing in life. He was a carpenter. So he would do one job at a time. So for him, if somebody asked him to take on more, it made sense to say yes. because it was only one job. He would take that on. They would love him because he said yes. Richard Branson, I found out the quote that I had heard wasn't complete. What he said was say yes to everything you want to do and figure out how to do it later. That's a big distinction. So he wasn't saying yes to everything. He was just saying yes to the things that moved the needle for Richard Branson. So finally, I understood that the no was more powerful than the yes. Now, the new challenge you'll have when you hear me say this is if you want to start saying no, how do you actually say no without burning a bridge? Would you agree? The hard part sometimes about saying no for people pleasers is how do we not burn a bridge? So I interviewed Shalene Johnson from Turbo Jam, and I asked Shalene how she managed everything. And she shared with me that she used to say yes to all the instructors that wanted her to fill in for classes when they couldn't make it. And then finally she realized it was burning her out. So she finally realized the best way to say no was to tell them why she had to say no. So she said, I got to ask my husband to make sure we don't have anything booked this weekend because we're a very family oriented business. So I have to check with him. Can I get back to you and let you know for sure either way? And if I can't help you, I'll find somebody who can help you. And if I can help you, I'll help you. But I just want to make sure I'm not saying yes without talking to my husband first in case he already said yes for us. Would you say it's hard to get mad at somebody whenever they explain it that way? Like, I just want to make sure I'm not hurting my family and so on. But what she said she found out, which might not surprise you, is about 90% of the people, when she got back to them 2 days later, had already solved the problem. So you're not burning a bridge by saying it this way. And probably you don't have to solve the problem anyway by that time. Here's something I did discover though, is that that's fine. You don't want to burn a bridge, but how do you know what a yes and no is? Like, how do you know what really is a yes or a no for you? So I found the challenge a lot of people have is they might say yes and no to the wrong thing. So here's what I did to change that. I kept going into offices and seeing the companies had a mission statement. So I finally realized that if companies have a mission statement, we're the CEO of our own lives. Shouldn't we have a mission statement? Which I call a personal mission statement. So I crafted a mission statement here's the five, I'll call it points of my mission statement: to be the guy who motivates, educates, inspires, entertains, and donates. And what this allowed me to do by coming up with my own mission statement is I was able to say, when somebody asked me to do something, is this five of those or is this zero? Is it three? And if it's four or five, it's the easiest yes without regret. So if they ask me to do something and it's going to give me four or five of those things: donate, educate, inspire, it's an easy yes. If it's going to accomplish none of those things, it's the easiest no ever without exception. It's in fact part of the reason why I said yes to this. Would you agree that what we're doing here today covers off educating, inspiring, entertaining, hopefully, giving back? And so that's my mission statement to help me decide what a yes and no is. So what I do with everything that gets asked of me is I say, how many of those things does it move the needle on? If it's almost none of them, it's a no. If it's a lot of them, it's a yes. So what can you do with that is you can craft your own mission statement to figure out what a yes and a no is to you and proceed accordingly. And then I told you already how you can say no or yes without burning a bridge. I will admit there's times you can't say no. For instance, I was on the way here to do this session today, and I got pulled over by the police. I ran late because saying no to the police, sorry, I got to go to my speaking, I got to go and speak, is probably not an option. And so that was why I was running late. But that's also, I want to clarify, there are times when you can't say no. You might have a boss that asks you to do something. Don't say, Corey said, it's not my mission statement, so this is a no. So I want to clarify, it's not a no for everything. It's the no that you can say no to. And so what I would love to see people do going forward, as I'll call it a call to action or take action that you will take after today, is it's hard to start saying no. So I want you to pick something that's easier to say no to. Go to emails that people sent you that you didn't solicit, that you didn't ask for. And normally you might ignore them and say, they're trying to pitch me something. What I want you to do is actually nicely say no to them. Because this is going to start flexing your no muscle by saying no, sorry, I would love to help, but that's not a fit for me. Or sorry, that's not the kind of company we operate. There's not really a good fit here. But actually take the time to say no, because it's an easy no, but you'll start flexing the muscle, which will make it easier as you get busier and no's become mandatory. And my hope for the future is if we all start saying no a little more, we'll all start becoming a little more sane. We'll all accomplish a lot more, and we'll all feel a lot better about ourselves because we're doing the things we really want to do instead of the things other people really want us to do. Thank you, guys.